Dog jumps out of moving car and starts barking. What police discover leaves everyone in shock. Sarah Collins barely had time to react when Max launched himself through the patrol car's half-open window. One moment they were cruising through Atlanta's industrial district, and the next, her partner's muscular form was sailing through the air, his tactical vest catching the early morning light. "Max!" The word escaped her lips as she slammed on the brakes, the cruiser's tires screeching against worn asphalt. In 6 years of working together, the Belgian Malinois had never done anything like this. Her heart raced as she threw the car into park and grabbed her radio. "Dispatch, this is K9 Unit 247. Location, 4th and Industrial. Pursuing..." She hesitated, watching Max sprint toward a chain-link fence wrapped in faded construction tarps. Pursuing investigation of suspicious activity. The autumn air bit at her face as she followed Max, her boots crunching on gravel and broken concrete. The dog's normally disciplined demeanor had been replaced by something she'd never seen before, a frantic urgency that made her skin prickle. He circled an area near the center of the abandoned lot, barking with an intensity that echoed off the surrounding warehouses. "What is it, boy?" Sarah approached cautiously, one hand resting on her holstered weapon. The lot should have been empty, just another failed development project by Monroe and Associates, the construction company that had abandoned half a dozen sites across Atlanta after their corruption scandal 2 years ago. Max's barking grew more insistent. He scratched at the ground, sending small clouds of dust into the air. Sarah pulled out her flashlight, sweeping its beam across the disturbed earth. Something caught her eye, a patch of concrete that didn't quite match the rest, newer somehow, hastily poured. "Officer Collins?" A voice called from behind her. Officer Rodriguez from the morning patrol had responded to her call. "Everything okay?" "Get CSU out here," Sarah said, not taking her eyes off Max. "And contact Detective Martinez. Tell him..." She paused as Max let out a particularly sharp bark. "Tell him we might have found what his brother was looking for." Within an hour, the abandoned lot had transformed into a crime scene. Floodlights cast harsh shadows across the ground as forensics teams worked to break through the concrete layer Max had identified. Sarah stood at the perimeter with her partner, one hand resting on his head, both of them watching intently. "You sure about this?" Detective Martinez asked, coming to stand beside her. The bags under his eyes spoke of sleepless nights spent searching for answers about his brother's disappearance. "Thomas disappeared 2 years ago. If something's down there..." "Max is sure," Sarah replied simply. She remembered Thomas Martinez, the accountant who'd walked into the precinct with a file folder full of documents, claiming he had evidence of massive contract fraud. He'd vanished 3 days later, along with whatever proof he'd discovered. The sound of breaking concrete filled the air, followed by sudden silence. Sarah felt Max tense under her hand. "Detective!" One of the CSU techs waved them over. "We've got something." Sarah approached the hole they'd created, Max at her heel. The beam of a forensics light illuminated what lay beneath, a hand, partially preserved by the concrete tomb, a gold wedding ring still glinting on one finger. Detective Martinez made a choked sound. He recognized that ring. But that wasn't all. As the team widened the hole, they found more. 4 more bodies, arranged in a cruel geometry of death, all bearing signs of execution-style wounds. "They killed them all," Martinez whispered. "Everyone who knew." Sarah felt her radio crackle to life. "K9 Unit 247, Captain Roberts requests your immediate return to the station to file your preliminary report." She keyed her mic to respond, but something made her hesitate. The captain had never pulled her from an active crime scene before. She looked at Max, who had gone rigid, his ears forward, a low growl rumbling in his chest. Her partner's instincts had already saved her life more than once. "Negative, dispatch," she replied, watching as Max's attention shifted to a black SUV that had just pulled up at the edge of the crime scene. "We're maintaining scene security. Please inform the captain I'll report in once the scene is processed." The SUV's tinted window rolled down part way, then up again, before the vehicle pulled away. Max's growl deepened. Sarah pulled out her phone and opened a secure messaging app. To the private number she'd been given years ago by a journalist she trusted, she typed, "Remember that construction scandal you were investigating? We found what they buried. Sending coordinates. Bring your camera and watch your back." She looked down at Max, who had pressed himself against her leg, alert and ready. "What did we just step into, partner?" His dark eyes met hers, and in them she saw the same determination she felt growing in her own heart. Whatever was buried here, bodies, corruption, or worse, they would dig until they found the truth, no matter who tried to stop them. Martinez was still staring at his brother's ring when Sarah touched his shoulder. "Detective," she said quietly, "I think it's time we talked about what Thomas really found and why they're already trying to shut us down." Above them, storm clouds gathered over Atlanta's skyline, promising rain that would wash away evidence if they didn't move quickly. Sarah felt the weight of 5 lost lives pressing down on her, along with the certainty that this was just the beginning. Max's ears twitched toward the sound of approaching vehicles, more black SUVs. Sarah squared her shoulders. They had scratched the surface of something dark, and there would be no walking away. Not now, not ever. The game was on, and the dead were finally ready to speak. The precinct's basement archives smelled of mold and secrets. Sarah's flashlight beam cut through the darkness, illuminating rows of metal filing cabinets that hadn't seen daylight in years. Max moved silently beside her, his nails clicking softly on the concrete floor. 2019 construction permits, she muttered, running her finger along the cabinet labels. Her other hand touched the USB drive in her pocket, containing photos of the crime scene they'd left behind. 5 bodies, 5 lives ended, to keep secrets buried. They shouldn't have been here at all. Captain Roberts had explicitly ordered her to stick to active cases, but something about his tone had set off warning bells, the same instinct that had made her trust Max's unusual behavior this morning. Max suddenly froze, his head turning toward the stairwell. Sarah killed her flashlight. Footsteps echoed from above, followed by voices. "You sure Collins accessed the old files?" A man's voice, unfamiliar and cold. "System shows her credentials were used this morning." That voice she knew, Officer Jensen from IT. "She's been digging into the Monroe and Associates case." Sarah pressed herself against the filing cabinets, heart pounding. Max stood perfectly still, years of training keeping him silent. The footsteps grew closer. "Find what she pulled and remove it, then wipe the access logs." The first voice again. "The commissioner wants this contained." Sarah's hand moved to her body cam, only to find an empty clip. Standard procedure required all officers to check their cameras at the desk when entering the archives. A convenient policy, she now realized. The beam of a flashlight swept the room, inches from where she stood. Max pressed against her leg, offering silent support. One wrong move, and they'd be discovered. "Check the back rows," Jensen said. "I'll start here." Sarah's mind raced. The only exit was the stairwell they were blocking. Then she felt Max's gentle tug on her pant leg, their silent signal for, "Follow me." The Belgian Malinois led her through the maze of cabinets, somehow avoiding every creaky floorboard. They rounded a corner just as a flashlight beam illuminated where they'd been standing. Max guided them to a maintenance door she'd never noticed, hidden behind old boxes. It was locked, but her partner had already spotted the ventilation grate near the floor. This was why K9 officers kept bolt cutters in their tactical vests. 30 seconds later, they were crawling through ancient ductwork. Sarah's uniform collected decades of dust as they navigated the narrow space, Max leading with unwavering confidence. "Nothing here," Jensen's voice echoed through the vents. "Maybe she hasn't pulled the files yet." "Set up surveillance. When she comes back, we'll know." Sarah kept moving, her mind racing. The commissioner himself wanted this buried. How high did this go? The vent system ended in a maintenance room on the ground floor. As Sarah helped Max out, her phone vibrated, a message from Martinez. "Brother's office broken into. Found something in his backup files. Need to meet." She typed back, "Cassidy's Diner. 1 hour. Bring everything on Monroe contracts." Max shook himself. dust clouding the air. Sarah smiled despite everything. "You need a bath, partner." His expression said he'd tolerate it, but only because it was her. They slipped out through the service entrance. The autumn sun was setting, casting long shadows across the parking lot. Sarah's instincts screamed danger. Max took point, leading her through parked cars and maintenance vehicles. They reached her personal car, an unmarked sedan she kept for situations like this, without incident. But as she reached for the door handle, Max's warning growl made her freeze. A reflection in her window, movement between the cars, the metallic click of a safety being disengaged. Sarah dropped and rolled under her car just as the first shot shattered her driver's side window. Max was already moving, launching himself through the broken glass with a ferocity that turned his usual silence into a battle cry, a shout, then the sound of a body hitting pavement. Sarah drew her weapon and spun around the car's hood. Max had the shooter pinned, a man in an expensive suit, his gun kicked away. "Federal agent!" the man gasped. "Call off your dog!" Sarah kept her weapon trained on him. "Show me ID, slowly." She noticed his shoes, handmade Italian leather, the kind no real federal agent could afford. The badge he produced looked real enough, but something was off. 2 years working airport security with Max had taught them both to spot fakes. "Max, hold," she commanded, taking a photo of the badge for her journalist contact. Then she met the fake agent's terrified eyes. "Here's what happens next," she said coldly. "You're going to tell me who sent you and what they're hiding. Right now, you're looking at assaulting an officer, false federal credentials, and attempted murder. Or, he swallowed hard, very aware of Max's teeth near his throat. Or you take a deal. Tell me everything, and maybe you don't spend 20 years in prison." His eyes darted around, finding no escape. "They'll kill me." Sarah knelt beside him, her voice steel. "They might, but right now, worry about us. 5 people are dead, and I'm done playing nice. Start talking." His confession came in a rush. Construction contracts, offshore accounts, buried bodies. It was bigger than she'd imagined. The commissioner wasn't just involved, he was orchestrating it all. Her phone buzzed. "Martinez. Being followed, can't make meeting. Found something huge, going dark." Sarah looked at Max, saw the same determination she felt. They were in too deep to back out now. The only way out was through. "Come on, partner," she said, cuffing their would-be assassin. "We've got files to find before they disappear forever." The sun had set completely now, leaving them in growing darkness. But Sarah didn't mind. After all, some truths could only be found in the shadows. And with Max at her side, she wasn't afraid of the dark. She just hoped Martinez would stay alive long enough to share what he'd found. Because in this game, information wasn't just power, it was survival. Sarah's hands shook as she unlocked her apartment door. The fake federal agent was in custody, but his words echoed in her mind. "You have no idea what you're up against. This goes back years." Max entered first, sweeping each room with practiced efficiency before returning to her side. The ritual was familiar, one they'd developed after their first case together went sideways. She sank onto her couch, the weight of the day pressing down. 5 bodies in concrete, a corrupt commissioner. Martinez in hiding. Her eyes fell on the framed photo on her coffee table. 2 years ago, graduation day from K9 training. She stood proud in her uniform, Max sitting alert beside her. Behind them, smiling broadly, was Lieutenant David Chen, their first supervisor, mentor, friend, the man who died trying to expose corruption in the department. "We should have listened to him, Max," Sarah whispered. The Belgian Malinois rested his head on her knee, dark eyes understanding. He remembered too. Chen had approached them 6 months into their partnership. A routine drug bust had yielded irregularities, evidence missing, reports altered, money unaccounted for. He'd trusted their fresh eyes and Max's untainted nose to help investigate. They'd found a pattern. Certain cases disappeared, certain suspects walked free, certain evidence vanished, all pointing to corruption that reached into the highest ranks. But they'd moved too fast, been too obvious. Chen had paid the price. Sarah's phone buzzed, A text from her journalist contact about the fake agent's badge. Match found. Security contractor. Company owned by Shell Corp, Monroe and Associates. Her breath caught. The same company from the construction site. The same company Chen had been investigating before his accident. Max's head suddenly lifted, ears forward. A second later, Sarah heard it too. Footsteps in the hallway, too heavy for her elderly neighbor, too deliberate for a casual passerby. She killed the lights, drawing her weapon. Max moved to flank the door, muscles coiled. The lock clicked. Someone with a key. The door opened slowly. "Sarah, it's Martinez. Don't shoot." She kept her gun trained on the doorway. "Prove it. Your partner's full name is Maximilian Justice Collins. You named him that because Chen said every good cop needs a strong name. And if you were going to be partners, he needed your last name too." Sarah lowered her weapon. "Get in here, fast." Martinez looked terrible, suit wrinkled, eyes wild, a fresh cut above his eye. He clutched a laptop like a lifeline. "They found me at the safe house," he said, locking the door. "Nearly didn't make it out. But Thomas, he left something they never found." He opened the laptop, fingers flying across keys. My brother wasn't just their accountant. He was gathering evidence, building a case. Look. The screen filled with documents, bank transfers, property deeds, shell companies, all connecting back to Monroe and Associates. And there, in email after email, a familiar name. Chen found it first. Martinez said quietly, "That's why they killed him. Why they killed Thomas. The commissioner isn't just taking bribes, he's running an empire through the construction company, laundering money, disposing of bodies." A low growl from Max cut him off. Sarah felt it too. Something was wrong. The hallway had gone too quiet. Martinez's phone lit up. "Found you!" The window exploded as a flashbang grenade arced into the room. Sarah moved on instinct, tackling Martinez as Max lunged for the laptop. The world went white. Her ears rang. Through the chaos, she heard Max's warning bark, felt his teeth gently grab her sleeve, their signal to move. She pushed Martinez toward the bedroom. "Fire escape! Go!" The front door burst open. Shadowy figures poured in, weapons raised. Max was already moving, a dark blur of fur and fury. He hit the first attacker low, sending the man crashing into his companions. The confusion bought them precious seconds. Sarah fired twice, forcing the attackers back. The laptop was secure in Max's jaws as they sprinted after Martinez. Cold air hit her face as they emerged onto the fire escape, 3 stories up, steel rattling beneath their feet. "Police! Freeze!" The voice came from above, more attackers on the roof. Not real police, Sarah knew, not with those weapons. "Down!" she shouted. Max led the way, taking the stairs 3 at a time. Bullets pinged off metal around them. They hit the alley running. Martinez stumbled, but Sarah grabbed his arm, keeping him upright. Max stayed close, the laptop still carefully held. "My car's 2 blocks east," Martinez gasped. "No, they'll expect that." Sarah pulled them west instead, toward the old industrial district. "I know somewhere safer." The sound of pursuit faded as they wove through darkened streets. 10 minutes later, they ducked into an abandoned warehouse. Sarah led them to a hidden basement office she and Max had found months ago. A secure bolt hole stocked with supplies. Another lesson learned from Chen. As Martinez set up the laptop, Sarah checked Max for injuries. The Belgian Malinois had protected the computer perfectly. Not a single tooth mark marred its surface. "Good boy," she whispered, pressing her forehead to his. They were both thinking of another night like this, another chase. The night they'd found Chen's body. Never again, she'd promised then. Never let another good cop die exposing the truth. "Sarah." Martinez's voice shook. "There's more, so much more." Chen was close, closer than they knew. Thomas found the missing piece. Max's head snapped up, a low growl building in his chest. Sarah drew her weapon. "How many?" "At least 4. Martinez whispered, reading Max's signal. "Coming from the east." 5 minutes to copy the files," she said. "Can you buy us that long, partner?" Max's eyes met hers. In them she saw the same determination Chen had always praised, the unfailing loyalty that had made them Atlanta's best K9 team. "Together then," she said, moving to cover the door, "like Chen taught us." Outside, footsteps approached. Sarah took a deep breath, feeling Max solid beside her. Some fights you couldn't walk away from, some truths demanded to be heard, and some partners never let you face the darkness alone. Administrative transfer, effective immediately. Captain Roberts's words hit Sarah like a physical blow. "Max will report to Narcotics Division tomorrow morning." She stood rigid in his office, morning sunlight casting long shadows across his desk. "Sir, we're in the middle of an active investigation. Which major crimes will handle?" Roberts didn't look up from his paperwork. "K9 assignments are at department discretion, Officer Collins. You know that." Max pressed against her leg, sensing her tension. They both knew what this was. Punishment for getting too close. "The Monroe case is connected to 6 deaths now," Sarah said carefully, "including Lieutenant Chen." That made Roberts look up. "Chen's death was ruled an accident. Don't make accusations you can't support, Collins." "Yes, sir." She kept her voice neutral, even as her mind raced. They had 12 hours before the transfer, 12 hours to use the evidence from Thomas Martinez's laptop, 12 hours to save her partner. The walk to her patrol car felt like a funeral march. Max followed silently, his usual energy subdued. In the parking lot, other officers avoided her gaze. News traveled fast in the department. Her phone buzzed as they reached the car. A text from an unknown number. "Storage Unit 247. Lexington Drive, Chen's old unit, hurry." Sarah glanced at Max. "What do you think, partner? One last case?" His tail wagged once decisively. The storage facility was on the outskirts of Atlanta, a maze of identical metal buildings baking in the Georgia sun. Unit 247 looked like all the others, except for the fresh scratches around the lock. Someone had been here recently. Max's nose worked overtime as they approached, taking in every scent. His sudden tension told Sarah they weren't alone. A voice behind them confirmed it. "You're predictable, Collins." She turned slowly. Agent Wilson from Internal Affairs stood flanked by 2 officers she didn't recognize. His smile didn't reach his eyes. "The commissioner thought you might check Chen's old haunts," Wilson said. "Time to step away. Final warning." Sarah's hand inched toward her weapon. "Since when does IA work directly for the commissioner?" "Since he signs the checks." Wilson's smile vanished. "Max's transfer isn't the only paper on his desk. There's also your termination notice. Your choice." A low growl rumbled in Max's throat. Sarah felt the same fury. 6 months of work. 5 dead whistleblowers. Everything Chen had died trying to expose. "My choice," she said softly. "Okay." She moved fast, but Max was faster. As she dove behind a concrete barrier, her partner launched himself at Wilson. The agent's gun went flying as 50 pounds of highly trained K9 hit him full force. The other officers scrambled for cover as Sarah opened fire, forcing them back. She didn't aim to kill, just keep them pinned down. "Max, find!" she shouted. It was a gamble, but Chen had been Max's trainer too. If anything remained in that storage unit, the Belgian Malinois broke off his attack and sprinted to the unit. His powerful jaws clamped onto the lock and twisted. Metal screamed. Bullets sparked off the concrete around Sarah. She returned fire, keeping track of Max in her peripheral vision. The lock gave way. "Good boy!" She backed toward him, still firing. "Inside!" They ducked into the unit as another volley of shots peppered the metal door. Sarah's flashlight beam cut through the darkness, revealing stacks of boxes and old furniture. "Find it, Max," she whispered. "Whatever Chen left." Her partner was already moving, nose working methodically. He stopped at a filing cabinet, pawing at the bottom drawer. Sarah yanked it open. Empty, except for a single USB drive taped under the top folder. "Freeze! Atlanta PD!" New voices outside. Sarah's heart sank until she recognized one of them. "Federal agents! Everyone on the ground!" She knew that voice, Special Agent Diana Chen, David's sister. The FBI agent had never believed her brother's death was an accident. the sound of multiple weapons hitting pavement, handcuffs clicking. "Clear!" Diana called. "Officer Collins, Max, you can come out." Sarah emerged carefully, Max at her heel. Wilson and his men were face down, surrounded by FBI agents. Diana Chen looked exactly as Sarah remembered, same sharp eyes as her brother. "Got my message?" the agent asked. Sarah held up the USB drive. "Chen's insurance policy?" "One of them. The rest," Diana smiled grimly, "the rest is in the evidence we've spent 2 years gathering. Wilson just gave us the last piece we needed. Direct orders from the commissioner." Max's warning growl cut through the moment. Sarah spun to see Wilson thrashing against his cuffs, face contorted. "He's seizing!" an agent shouted. "Cyanide capsule!" Diana snapped. "Get medical here now!" But they all knew it was too late. Wilson's body went still, taking his confession with him. Sarah's phone vibrated. A text from Martinez. "Commissioners called emergency press conference. 1 hour. She showed it to Diana. The FBI agent's expression hardened. "He's going to get ahead of the story," Diana said. "Burn everything. Disappear overseas. We need to move now. The evidence on this drive won't be enough without Wilson, unless—" Diana looked at Max. "That construction site where you found the bodies. The commissioner's going to be there, making his statement, surrounded by press." Sarah understood. "And if Max found something else buried there? Something the initial search missed? With dozens of cameras recording, even he couldn't cover that up." Sarah knelt beside her partner. In 12 hours they were supposed to be separated, reassigned, silenced. "What do you say, Max? One last shot at the truth." The Belgian Malinois stood tall, every muscle ready. In his eyes she saw Chen's determination, the same fire that had drawn them together as partners. Sarah checked her weapon. "The press conference is at the construction site." Diana nodded. "Where it all started. Then let's finish it. For Chen." They ran for their vehicles as Diana coordinated with her team. The morning sun climbed higher, burning away shadows. Time to bring everything into the light. The next hour would change everything, or end everything. Sarah smiled grimly as Max jumped into the car. At least they'd face it together. The construction site had transformed in the hour before the commissioner's press conference. News vans lined the street, their satellite dishes reaching toward the morning sky. A podium stood where Sarah and Max had found the bodies 3 days ago, the freshly disturbed earth now hidden under a hastily constructed platform. "Quite a show," Diana Chen said quietly, watching from their position in a nearby alley. "My brother would have appreciated the irony." Sarah checked her weapon one last time, watching Max out of the corner of her eye. The Belgian Malinois was focused intently on the site, his posture radiating contained energy. "Martinez is in position?" she asked. Diana nodded. "FBI has him secured. The files from Thomas's laptop are being uploaded to every major news outlet as we speak. When the commissioner starts his speech, they go live. He'll have an escape plan. 3 vehicles in the parking garage next door. Private security team. They're ready to move the moment anything goes wrong." Diana's smile was cold. "That's why we have teams at every exit. He's not walking away this time." Movement at the podium drew their attention. The commissioner had arrived, his expensive suit immaculate as always. Camera shutters clicked rapidly as he took his position, flanked by Captain Roberts and 2 stone-faced security guards. "This is a dark day for Atlanta," he began, his voice carrying clearly across the construction site. 3 days ago, a terrible discovery was made here. Evidence of crimes that shake the very foundation of our city's trust. Sarah felt her phone vibrate. Martinez's signal. The files were public. Right on cue, reporters' phones began lighting up. The commissioner faltered as he saw the change in their expressions, the sudden flurry of urgent whispers. "Commissioner!" A reporter stood. "Can you comment on documents just released showing your connection to Monroe and Associates, specifically offshore accounts linked to construction contract kickbacks?" The commissioner's mask slipped for just a moment. His eyes darted to the parking garage. "Now, Max," Sarah whispered, They had practiced this moment for hours. Max burst from the alley at full sprint, Sarah close behind. The crowd parted instinctively at the sight of a police K9 in tactical gear. "Stop that dog!" the commissioner shouted. But it was too late. Max headed straight for a spot 20 feet from the podium, beginning to dig with intense focus. Every camera swiveled to follow him. "More bodies!" Sarah called out clearly, her voice carrying to the microphones. "Max has found another grave." It wasn't a grave, not this time. But buried beneath the loose soil was something just as damning. A waterproof case containing 2 decades of the commissioner's private records. Chen had hidden it there the night before his death, trusting that someday someone would find it. The commissioner's security team moved toward them, hands reaching for weapons. But FBI agents were already emerging from the crowd, badges raised. "Federal agents, nobody move!" Diana Chen stepped onto the platform, her badge gleaming. "Commissioner Williams, you're under arrest for conspiracy, corruption, and multiple counts of homicide." The commissioner's face contorted. "This is absurd. Captain Roberts, do something." But Roberts was already backing away, hands raised, self-preservation winning over loyalty. Williams looked around wildly, then bolted for the parking garage. He made it 3 steps before Max caught him, taking him down with practiced efficiency. Sarah approached the struggling commissioner, handcuffs ready. "David Chen says hello." His eyes widened in recognition, then narrowed in fury. "You have no idea what you've done. The people I work for are next," Diana cut in. "The FBI sends their regards." As Sarah secured the cuffs, Max returned to the hole he'd dug. His barking drew everyone's attention. "Sarah!" Diana called. "He's found something else!" The case they'd planted wasn't alone. Beneath it lay another box, older, metallic, its surface corroded. Inside, they found exactly what Thomas Martinez had died trying to expose. Ledgers documenting 20 years of bribes, murders, and cover-ups. The commissioner's insurance policy against his own bosses. "Chen knew," Sarah said softly. "He knew it was here the whole time." Diana nodded. "My brother always said the best place to hide evidence was right under their noses. He just needed the right team to find it." The next hours passed in a blur of arrests and revelations. Captain Roberts turned state's evidence, trading testimony for leniency. Martinez emerged from FBI protection to present his brother's evidence. And through it all, Max stayed by Sarah's side, ever vigilant. As the sun began to set, they stood watching FBI agents load boxes of evidence into trucks. The commissioner's empire was falling, its shadow lifting from Atlanta 1 document at a time. Sarah's phone buzzed, a department-wide email announcing the dissolution of the K9 transfer order. She showed it to Max, who responded with a dignified wag of his tail. "Not bad for our last case," she said. Diana approached, holding a familiar file. "About that, the FBI's forming a new task force, corruption and organized crime, focusing on cases like this. We need good investigators." She looked at Max, both human and canine. Sarah felt a smile tugging at her lips. "What would your brother say?" "He'd say," Diana's voice softened, "he'd say some partners are meant to stay together." Max's ears perked up at that. Sarah knelt beside him, seeing in his eyes the same certainty she felt. "What do you think, partner? Ready for a new challenge?" His answer was a gentle bump of his head against her shoulder, the same gesture he'd given her at their first meeting, when Chen had introduced them. Some bonds couldn't be broken, some truths couldn't stay buried, and some partners were forever. 6 months later, Sarah stood before the new memorial wall at Atlanta Police Headquarters. Lieutenant David Chen's photo held a place of honor, his determined smile now cast in bronze. Beside her, Max sat perfectly still, both of them watching as Thomas Martinez's sister hung a photo next to Chen's. The truth board, officers had taken to calling it, a reminder of those who'd died trying to expose corruption and those who'd finally succeeded. Sarah touched her new FBI badge, remembering the day Chen had first paired her with Max. "Every good cop needs the right partner," he'd said. He'd been right about that, like so many things. Her phone buzzed, a message from Diana Chen. Sentencing in 10 minutes. Commissioners making noise about deals. Get here. Ready, partner? She asked Max. His tail wagged once, decisively. The courthouse steps were crowded with reporters. The commissioner's trial had captured national attention, exposing corruption networks in cities across the country. Each new revelation had triggered another investigation, another domino falling. Sarah and Max slipped in through a side entrance, finding Diana waiting. The FBI agent looked tired, but satisfied. "Full house," Diana said. "Every major outlet, even caught some of his old friends trying to sneak in with fake press badges." They entered the courtroom as Williams was led in. 6 months of jail had stripped away his expensive suits and careful facade. The man who'd once commanded Atlanta's police force now shuffled in chains. He couldn't quite hide his flinch when he saw Max, the Belgian Malinois' testimony, finding the bodies, the hidden records, the additional sites, had been crucial. Williams had tried to have the evidence thrown out, claiming illegal search and seizure. The judge's response had become headlines. A dog's instinct for truth cannot be corrupted. Unlike commissioners, the judge entered and Williams was brought forward for sentencing. Sarah felt Martinez tense beside her. This moment had cost his family everything. "Before this court renders its decision," the judge began, "does the defendant wish to make a statement?" Williams stood shakily. "Your Honor, I maintain that my actions were always in service to this city. If certain individuals became threats to public order, you buried them in concrete," the judge cut in, "along with evidence of your crimes. Lieutenant Chen made a choice to expose corruption. Thomas Martinez chose to gather evidence. They died for those choices. You chose to kill them." The commissioner's shoulders slumped. Behind him, former allies turned away. In light of the overwhelming evidence and the defendant's refusal to cooperate, this court sentences Harold Williams to life imprisonment without possibility of parole. All assets connected to Monroe and Associates and related enterprises are hereby forfeited. Williams swayed. "Your Honor, I request protective custody. There are people who don't want me to testify." "You should have thought of that before burying their secrets," the judge replied coldly. As bailiffs led Williams away, Martinez gripped Sarah's arm. "Look at his face. He's going to talk." "Too late for deals," Diana said, "but not too late for justice." Outside, autumn sunlight warmed the courthouse steps. Max's sudden alertness drew Sarah's attention to a figure approaching. Former Captain Roberts, now cooperating witness Roberts. "Agent Collins," he said quietly, "I need to talk to you about the other sites." Sarah felt Max tense. Other sites. Places like the construction yard, where they buried problems. He swallowed hard. "I remember 3 more, maybe 4. She exchanged looks with Diana. The case wasn't over. An hour later, they stood at an abandoned quarry outside the city. Max worked the ground methodically, FBI forensics following his every signal. Sarah watched her partner, remembering that first desperate leap from her patrol car that had started it all. Her phone buzzed. Another message from the task force. More company records had gone public. More shell corporations exposed. The commissioner's network was unraveling. Max barked sharply. He'd found something. Sarah moved to his side, Diana close behind. Together, they began to dig, bringing secrets into the light. It was what Chen had trained them to do, what he'd died doing. "FBI, drop your weapons!" The shout came from above, armed figures on the quarry rim, the commissioner's last loyal soldiers making one final attempt. But they'd forgotten something important. Sarah and Max weren't alone anymore. More FBI agents emerged from cover, Diana's planning paying off. The firefight was brief. When it ended, 4 more conspirators were in custody. "You okay, partner?" Sarah asked, checking Max for injuries. He bumped his head against her shoulder, their signal for always. The sun climbed higher, burning away shadows. More FBI teams arrived, the quarry becoming another crime scene, another piece of the puzzle they'd been assembling since that first morning. Sarah felt Max press against her leg, solid and sure. Some battles ended, others were just beginning. The Commissioner's network had spread beyond Atlanta, its roots deep in cities across the country. But they would face it together. A dog, his partner, and the determination that had made them Atlanta's best K-9 team. Behind them, Atlanta's skyline rose against the morning sky, its foundations stronger, its shadows less dark. Somewhere, Sarah knew, Chen was smiling. His legacy lived on in every case they solved, every secret they exposed. Max's nose was already catching another scent, leading them toward tomorrow's truth. Sarah smiled, checking her weapon. Justice had been served, but their real work was just beginning. Together they walked toward the future, leaving buried secrets in the light behind them, ready for whatever came next. After all, some partnerships were meant to last forever, and some truths refused to stay buried.